Phantom Brigade is one of those games that came completely out of the blue for me. Even though it's been in early access since 2020, I was completely unaware of it. A turn-based mech tactics game with this unique prediction mechanic that allows you to see 5 seconds into the future, planning the moves for the 4 mechs on your team based upon that foreknowledge of what the enemy is going to do. It's really unique. You click to execute and then you watch the action unfold. You can slow it down, change the angles. It really looks cool. You might dominate, having accounted for every single enemy angle of attack, moved your mechs into the optimal firing positions, outflanked the enemy to shoot them in the back, or you might watch in horror as your mech crumples because there was something that you missed. It's compelling, scrubbing backwards and forwards through the upcoming turn, deliberating over what each of your mechs should do. Then as you get more proficient, coming up with strategies, so they start to work together. Tanky mechs moving to use their shield to guard the more lightly armoured units, everything working in tandem, deliberately moving into forward positions to draw fire while your other units flank around the side. The sense of success when your battle plan works, it's compelling. And the ability to watch it over and over from those different angles, I can't stress that enough. It's just immensely fun to do. Sometimes you feel more like a film director than a general, choosing actions based on what's going to look the coolest rather than what's the best thing to do. Graphically, the game is clean and crisp. With the mech designs, they're a little bit more lithe and agile than the majority of, say, Battletech designs, but not quite as over-the-top cool as like Gundams and things. The animations are really nice as well. The replay mechanic would fail completely if it weren't dynamic to watch, and thankfully they are. The mechs swing their swords, they jump and crouch, run head on with their shield held up, slamming into the enemy, blocking barrages of machine gun fire. It's a pleasant change for anyone familiar with mech tactics or turn-based strategy in general. In fact, these unique choices remind me of the decision Firaxis made with its XCOM remake to distill the original game's time units into a simple move and shoot mechanic. Phantom Brigade's prediction system feels kind of like that. It feels more fluid, although it can still take a long time to analyse the upcoming 5 seconds. Because you hit a button and it replays all at once, it just feels a little bit faster. It's certainly feels different, and it's a change from the usual initiative-based system or your squad moves and their squad moves, etc. Because of this, there's a lot to learn at the start, and the tutorial goes some way towards helping with that, but not all the way. Once the game proper started, I found there were key things I needed to learn, which the game is not going to tell me, like the importance of the wait command. It's introduced in the tutorial, but the intricacies are not. So for instance, the fact that where you drag the cursor on screen affects your mech's facing. That's pivotal in a game where flanking and rear attacks are so important. It's all connected to the wait command, and the tutorial skips over that. Similarly, how to progress on the overland map isn't entirely clear. The Home Guard is mentioned, another force of mechs belonging to beleaguered resistance who will occupy regions once they're liberated and aid you in battles. You are told you need to work in conjunction with these guys, but how to do that isn't immediately clear. I was bumbling about fighting random battles until I realised I was supposed to click this button to contest a region. Until you do that, nothing really matters. Contesting triggers the Home Guard to send you key targets, farms, towns, military bases, or groups of mechs that they need you to wipe off the map or liberate. It all makes sense once you know that, but there's a lack of upfront information, and a little bit of patience is required, or looking at some guides, I think. A concerted effort has been made to make that overland map strategy layer compelling in itself. It's certainly more interactive than XCOM's Geoscape, for instance. You move around in your mobile base, which can be upgraded with stealth tech, faster engines, or the ability to call in aid when you're outmatched, but I have to say, most of this ended up feeling a little bit superfluous to me. The enemy is pretty easy to avoid or to beat once you understand you have to contest the region quickly, before things escalate to the point where you're fighting these very hard groups of mechs. Escalation is this ticking clock in the region, where the longer you dawdle, the more difficult the enemy becomes as they mobilize against you. But I found there was really no reason to delay. After the first region, where that escalation mounted to the point I was having problems, I moved into a region, contested immediately, and the escalation counter never really reached a higher level. There are special events where you learn about your crew with story, little bits of story, or have to investigate hidden facilities. This really could have added some spice to proceedings, the opportunity to veer off the main quest and go looking for special rewards, etc. But I don't know whether it was a bug or me being dense, but the supposed rewards I was meant to be getting for these things, several times my engineer told me they'd recovered something special from a secret base, and for the life of me I couldn't find it in my inventory or anywhere. I suspect it might be patterns of things that you can create in your manufacturing workshop on the mobile base, but I'm still not sure, and it did lead to this feeling I was having that, well, there's kind of no point doing this because I don't know what I'm getting as a reward for it. The game is telling me I'm getting a reward. Where is it? I still don't know what was going on there. Speaking of upgrades, there's a satisfying number of mech frames and weapons to collect with varying stats, and unlike some games, you are given complete freedom to mix and match with your mechs. You can have a mech with light arms, or one light arm, one heavy arm, medium legs, and a heavy torso if you so wish. Just as long as it's not prone to overheating, you're good to go. Although I did find in reality you tended towards more sensible choices anyway. Heavy parts for mechs you want to tank, light parts for speedy mechs, but you do have the freedom to create all-rounders or mechs suited to multiple roles, which I appreciated. There's a lot of options, but again, very little of it is explained. You have to stare at those stats and kind of puzzle it out. I think a bit of foreknowledge of MechWarrior games is going to go a long way in Phantom Brigade, and I'm bound to wonder if this is your first mech tactics game. I think there's a chance you could be completely lost. I certainly wouldn't have known what I was doing unless I played those mech games in the past. On that topic, given the richness of other existing mech universes, I was really expecting to learn more about Phantom Brigade's world. Key characters in the fight, the names of famous divisions of mechs, the history in this universe, but there's really nothing here. It's very bare bones. You are a rebellion fighting a fairly faceless enemy whose motivations remain unclear even after you complete the game. There's some kind of dictatorial state that wants to impose its own rule over your homeland, and it is literally called the Homeland in the fiction, nothing more specific than that. But why? What are their motivations? Is this a clash of cultures that has been a source of conflict for centuries? Does the opposing army belong to some opportunistic dictator? A disenfranchised politician, perhaps? With this kind of blank slate setting, you could do absolutely anything. Maybe the enemy has been possessed by body-snatching aliens. It all remains fundamentally unclear. At first I thought this was a deliberate choice. I'm a big fan of fiction that provides unanswered questions, allowing the player or the moviegoer or the reader to fill in the gaps from their own experience and what they think might be going on. But in reality, having completed the game and got a sense after 50 hours of what is going on, I think the devs have just chosen not to focus there. They're focused on the game mechanics, and those are very strong. The tactical battles are always fun, and that precognitive planning phase is unique. But the lack of in-depth story and named characters to root the player in some kind of mythology is missing, and I missed it. I think it's a missed opportunity. I don't want there to be any doubt, however, my high regard for this game. I've played over 50 hours, as I say, and enjoyed my time immensely. But in some ways, it feels like a proof of concept. With the things like customization options for mechs and pilots, you can see that the system for adding these is there. You can change individual mech parts, a combination of colours, but they're very flat, basic colour schemes. There's a lot of them, but not very inspiring. No camo, no stripes, no logos you might add, no option for weathering or battle damage, so your mechs look scarred and beaten up. The pilot customization likewise has a fair few options, but the faces, for instance, there's very little difference between them. Slightly shorter chin, all the chins in this game seem overly long to me, or eyes slightly wider apart. The only way I found to really differentiate was to give them helmets or beards, facial hair, that kind of thing. The option for hairstyles is anemic. There's like 4 or 5 and they all suck. Again, the system for choosing those things is there, but it's like the actual options are very bare bones. It seems like the start of something. The bones need more meat on them. All the pilots are different, have a unique bio, which you can change, and you can also change the names, so that's nice. But I also get the feeling there's supposed to be stats and it's supposed to make a difference which pilot is in which mech, but I found it didn't really. Some have different health, but I don't think they have any other stats that affect how good they are piloting a heavy mech or a light mech. All of this is to say I can see the potential that could be added, but at its core, the game is really a lot of fun to play. Fun battles, an interesting system of customization with many stats to tweak in pursuit of the perfect mech, uncommon and rare upgrade parts to find. It's compelling, keeps you playing, but it feels like the solid foundation upon which even greater things could be built in the future. Something with a more characterful story, more varied enemies, more options for progression, and more secrets to find and things to explore. The game is also rough here and there with some strange decisions, one being missiles. They'll soon become the bane of your life because they're the one thing your prediction tech can't track. It seems like a really strange choice given that everything else is trackable. Why are missiles not? For some reason they've decided that no, being able to track missiles would be cheating. Hold on, we're cheating throughout the entire game. We can see the future. That rather elegant notion of being able to see what the enemy will do and failure becoming based upon a lack of attention on your part and planning is kind of spoilt by this one random element of missiles in the mix. I can only think the devs don't entirely trust the system they've created, but if it makes any difference, I'm here to say it will be fine. Being able to track the missiles, fine. It won't spoil the core gameplay at all. In fact, it will reinforce the sense of achievement when you dodge at precisely the right time because you've got the information you need rather than guessing. That endorphin hit when you watch that successful replay, which Phantom Brigade bases its gameplay on, will be absolutely fine, and I think it will be reinforced if we can see those missiles. In conclusion, Phantom Brigade was a complete surprise for me. A compelling mech tactics game with that unique prediction mechanic that makes battles very repeatable and very replayable. It seems like a core foundation upon which future expansions or sequels could be built, and I really hope the game is successful enough that Brace Yourself Games gets the chance to make some. If you enjoyed this review, please check out some of my others. I also did a tutorial with my top tips for success in Phantom Brigade. Link that here. I've been Napyet, and thanks for watching.